My name is Celeste Marlowe, and I am 29 years old. The first time my mother looked at me like I mattered, we were sitting at Christmas dinner, and I had just said one sentence that froze the entire table. For 10 years, she barely remembered I existed. No birthday calls unless guilt reminded her. No questions about my life unless she needed free tech help. No pride, no curiosity, no real place for me in the family story. Then that night, while everyone passed mashed potatoes and pretended we were normal, she gave me that soft little pity smile I had known since childhood and asked, "Are you still doing those tiny computer jobs for contractors?" I looked at her, then at my brother, then at my father, and something inside me went completely calm. I did not yell. I did not cry. I set down my fork and said, "Not exactly." I turned down a $34 million offer from my company last Tuesday. My brother froze with his hand halfway to his glass. My father stopped chewing and stared at his plate like the last 10 years had landed there. My mother's face changed so fast it almost made me laugh. The woman who had ignored my calls, skipped my milestones, and treated my life like background noise slammed her palm on the table and shouted, "Wait, what?" And in that moment, I understood the truth. She had not forgotten how to see me. She had only waited until I became expensive enough to notice. Before I tell you what she did next, tell me this. Have you ever been ignored by someone who suddenly cared the second you became successful? I was born in Mesa, Arizona, in a house where love did not disappear. It simply had a favorite direction. It always moved toward Preston Marlowe, my older brother. By the time I understood favoritism, he already had the best bedroom, the biggest birthday parties, private baseball coaching, new cleats, and framed photos in the hallway. My mother, Valerie Marlowe, spoke about him like he had been born to rescue our family name. I was 7 years younger, quiet, skinny, always holding a book or taking apart old electronics on the kitchen floor, and she treated me like a child she had agreed to raise but never planned to know. She did not hate me. That would have been easier. She fed me, bought school supplies, signed forms when I put them in front of her, but she never looked at me with expectation. Preston was going to be somebody. I was going to be fine. When he made junior varsity baseball, the whole family went to dinner in Scottsdale. When I won the 8th grade science fair for building a water filtration model, Valerie said, "That is nice, honey," then asked if I had seen Preston's lucky batting gloves. I learned early that if I wanted praise, I had to make it inside my own head. If I wanted someone to remember my birthday, I had to write it on the calendar myself. One year, when I turned 13, Valerie forgot completely because Preston had a real estate networking breakfast. She came home with business cards, kissed my head, and asked why I looked so dramatic. I pointed at the calendar. She blinked, then laughed softly. "Oh, Celeste, we will do cake this weekend." We never did. My father, Douglas Marlowe, was not cruel, but he avoided conflict like it was a fire. He worked long hours managing inventory for a warehouse supply company, came home tired, and let Valerie decide what mattered. If I showed him an A, he smiled and said, "Good job, kiddo." If Preston walked in with a story about a bad coach, bad teacher, or bad boss, dinner became a strategy meeting about how to help him. By high school, Preston was the family project. Valerie called him her future businessman, though he had more confidence than discipline. He liked expensive watches, clean sneakers, and talking loudly about opportunities he had not earned. She called that presence. When I stayed up late teaching myself coding from free videos, she said I was hiding too much. When I fixed a neighbor's laptop and earned $20, she told me not to get distracted from practical life. Practical life meant whatever made Preston look impressive. The strange thing is, I did not spend those years plotting revenge. I spent them trying to be seen. I cleaned without being asked. I got scholarships. I tutored other students. I joined robotics club. Every small success felt like knocking on a locked door. But when I got into Arizona State University with scholarship money, Valerie did not cry or throw a dinner. She looked at the letter and asked if Tempe was close enough for me to come home when Preston needed help with his website. That was the day something inside me shifted. I stopped asking the door to open. I started building a way out. The 10 years she ignored me did not begin with one huge fight. They began after I moved into a dorm room with 2 suitcases and cinderblock walls. Valerie did not call to ask if I was scared. She texted once during my first month and said, "Preston needs help setting up a real estate page. Can you do it this weekend?" I stared at it for a long time, then typed, "I have work and studying." She replied with one word, "Unbelievable." That was the beginning. Not total silence, because total silence would have been honest. This was worse. She remembered me only when I was useful. For the next decade, I became a ghost with technical skills. And ghosts, I eventually learned, can build things without anyone hearing the hammer. College did not feel like freedom at first. It felt like a bill I had to outrun. My scholarship kept me enrolled, but comfort was not included, so I worked wherever I could. I made coffee before sunrise near campus, restocked paper at a copy center after class, and designed cheap websites for roofers, plumbers, landscapers, and restoration contractors around Tempe and Gilbert. That copy center changed my life. People came in carrying folders full of photos of damaged kitchens, burned garages, flooded bathrooms, cracked roofs, insurance forms, handwritten estimates, and receipts that looked like they had survived a war. They were not fancy tech people. They were contractors trying to help families repair homes after monsoon damage, fires, burst pipes, dust storms, and disasters that never make national news but can ruin someone's year. I watched them lose hours because one photo was missing, one claim number was wrong, one adjuster had not received the right document, or one crew had been scheduled before materials arrived. They were hard-working people trapped in messy systems, and messy systems made sense to me. People had been placing me in the wrong file my entire life. I knew what it felt like to be overlooked because nobody built a system that made you visible. One night, a contractor named Miguel Torres came in 10 minutes before closing with photos from a roof collapse after heavy rain. His client was elderly. The insurance adjuster wanted more documentation, and his office manager had deleted half the image folder. I helped him recover what I could, renamed the files by address and date, created a spreadsheet, and built a checklist. He stared at the screen like I had pulled water from stone. "How much do I owe you?" he asked. I said $50 because I was 19 and had no idea what problem solving was worth. He gave me 100 and told 2 other contractors about me. That was the first seed of ClaimBridge AI, though back then it was just me, an old laptop, and a feeling that this problem was bigger than anyone realized. I started asking questions. Why were small restoration companies still tracking insurance claims with spreadsheets? Why did field crews send photos through text chains? Why were estimates, permits, invoices, and adjuster notes scattered across 5 apps? Why was the customer, the person whose home had been damaged, always the last to know what was happening? The more I learned, the more obsessed I became. I skipped parties to interview contractors. I spent Friday nights building prototypes in the library. I taught myself database design, automation, user experience, and machine learning tools that could sort damaged photos and flag missing documents. My roommate thought I was intense. My professors thought I was ambitious. Valerie thought I was being antisocial. When I tried to tell her I had found a real business problem, she interrupted before I finished. "Preston is getting into luxury real estate," she said. "He might need someone to clean up his online brand. You are good with computers. Maybe help him look more professional." I sat on my dorm bed, phone pressed to my ear, listening to her talk about him like he was a company already worth investing in. I had 3 contractor clients by then. I wanted to say, I am building something too. Instead, I said I had homework and ended the call. That night, I worked until 3 in the morning. I built a dashboard that let contractors upload property photos, tag rooms, assign crew members, track claim status, and generate reports for insurance adjusters. It was ugly, but it worked. Miguel tested it first. Then a water damage company in Chandler paid monthly. Then a roofing team in Glendale. Then a fire restoration company in Tucson. I charged too little, answered support emails myself, and fixed bugs between exams. But for the first time, something I made was not begging to be noticed. It was useful. People needed it. People paid for it. By senior year, I had 12 paying clients and a notebook full of ideas. I named it ClaimBridge because it built a bridge between the people doing the work, the families waiting for repairs, and the insurance companies demanding proof. Later, when we added automation and predictive document checks, it became ClaimBridge AI. I graduated from ASU with honors on a hot May afternoon. Valerie did not come. She said Preston had an open house event that could lead to an important contact. Douglas sent 3 words. Proud of you. I read them outside the arena while other families took photos with flowers. I did not cry. That night, still wearing my graduation dress, I opened my laptop and helped a contractor with a claim report. That was how I celebrated. I worked. And for once, working felt like building a door no one could lock from the other side. After graduation, Valerie expected me to get a safe job. She sent listings for office administrator roles and entry-level IT support jobs with little notes like, "This seems realistic," or "Benefits matter more than chasing dreams." I almost laughed at realistic. In my family, realistic had always meant smaller. Smaller dreams, smaller needs, smaller space at the table. But by then, ClaimBridge AI was already making more each month than any entry-level job would pay me. It was not glamorous. I rented a desk in a shared office in Phoenix where the air conditioning rattled and someone always microwaved fish. I hired a part-time developer from an ASU alumni group and a customer support assistant who had worked for a restoration company. We were 3 people, 2 folding tables, 1 whiteboard, and a product that kept improving because our clients told us exactly where it hurt. We added automatic photo organization, deadline reminders, material tracking, digital signatures, and customer updates that reduced angry phone calls. Small businesses loved us because we did not talk down to them. A roofer in Mesa did not need a corporate monster platform. He needed to know which claim was stuck, which crew was free, and whether Mrs. Parker's kitchen cabinets had been approved by insurance. At 24, I had 37 paying companies. At 25, we crossed $600,000 in annual recurring revenue. I stared at the number on a spreadsheet and felt the room go quiet. I was not rich. Most of the money went back into payroll, servers, legal work, security, and product development. But the company was real. It had weight. I wanted to tell my family, not because I needed applause, but because a small, stubborn child inside me still wanted to place proof on the table. So I tried one more time. I called Valerie on a Sunday. She answered while driving, distracted, with Preston talking in the background. I said, "ClaimBridge hit a big milestone this month." She said, "That is great, honey." Then she covered the phone and asked him whether he had called the mortgage broker. When she came back, she said, "Actually, can you make Preston a better landing page? His real estate page looks cheap." I closed my eyes and said I could recommend someone. She laughed. "Recommend someone? Celeste, it is family. Do not be selfish with your little computer skills." Little computer skills. I wrote those words on a sticky note and put it on my monitor, not because I believed them, but because I wanted to remember the size of the box she kept trying to put me in. By 26, we signed a multi-state restoration group across Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. By 27, we had 22 employees and more than $3 million in annual recurring revenue. We moved into a real office with glass conference rooms, bad parking, and a break room that made me emotional the first time I saw my employees laughing over coffee. I paid people well because I knew what it felt like to have labor taken for granted. Meanwhile, Preston's real estate career looked shinier outside than underneath. He posted photos in suits, leaned against cars he did not own, and used phrases like high-level deal flow, but he was borrowing money from my parents and missing credit card payments. Valerie defended every failure. The market was hard. Clients were jealous. His broker did not appreciate him. He just needed one big break. When I worked 18-hour days, I was obsessive. When he failed to follow up, he was misunderstood. That double standard used to make me angry. Then it made me sad, because she was not only ignoring me, she was damaging him too. She had turned him into a man who believed support meant rescue, and rescue meant he never had to grow. The first article about ClaimBridge AI appeared in a Phoenix business journal when I was 28. It called me a rising founder in insurance restoration technology and mentioned our growth, customer retention, and use of AI to reduce claim delays. Douglas saw it. I know because he liked the post on LinkedIn at 6:12 in the morning. Valerie did not mention it. 3 weeks later, she called and asked if my company could sponsor Preston's real estate networking event. Not attend. Not speak. Sponsor. She said it would be good exposure for me. I asked if she had read the article. She paused, then said, "I skimmed it. Very nice. Anyway, Preston really needs this room to look professional." That was the last time I tried to explain my success before Christmas. I stopped sending links. I stopped offering updates. What Valerie did not know was that bigger companies had started calling. Private equity groups, insurance software firms, construction tech investors. I took meetings quietly. And every time someone placed a number on the table, I remembered that sticky note. Little computer skills. The box was getting smaller. I was getting harder to contain. The $34 million offer arrived on a Tuesday morning in November, wrapped in polite legal language and delivered by people who smiled like they were doing me a favor. The company was based in Dallas, a large insurance technology group that wanted to expand into restoration workflow software. Their executives complimented our customer retention and used words founders are supposed to dream about: strategic acquisition, accelerated scale, life-changing outcome. I sat across the conference table with my CFO and best friend, Kira Noland, while they walked us through the offer. $34 million for full acquisition, retention package, transition period, press release, a future where ClaimBridge AI could reach the national market faster. Then came the part they hoped I would not question. They wanted to close the Phoenix office within a year, absorb our product into their platform, cut almost 40% of my team, and make the name ClaimBridge disappear. I looked at the printed offer and let myself feel the number. $34 million. Enough to change my life, Douglas's life, even Valerie's life if I wanted it to. Enough to buy silence from everyone who had ever called my work cute or unrealistic. Enough to become the kind of daughter Valerie would suddenly brag about. But as they talked, I thought about my employees. The support assistant who had left a toxic job to work for me. The developer with a baby on the way. The contractors who trusted us because we answered the phone like humans. I had not built ClaimBridge AI to watch it get swallowed and stripped for parts. So I said no. Not dramatically. Not foolishly. I said we were open to partnership, investment, or acquisition terms that protected the team and mission, but not this. The room cooled. One executive said, "Celeste, offers like this do not come every day." I said, Neither do companies like mine. Kira squeezed her pen until I thought it might snap. After they left, she laughed under her breath. You know your mother would faint if she knew what you just turned down. I said. My mother would have to know what I do first. We plan to keep the offer quiet, but business news travels when the number is big enough. A local article appeared 5 days before Christmas with a headline that made my stomach twist. Phoenix founder rejects $34 million acquisition offer. My phone exploded with messages from clients, investors, classmates, and people who had not spoken to me since high school. Douglas texted, "Is this true?" Before I could answer, Valerie called. Not texted. Called. That alone told me she had seen the number. Her voice was sweeter than usual. Celeste. Sweetheart. Are you coming for Christmas this year? I had not been home for Christmas in 3 years. The last time, I spent dinner listening to Valerie praise Preston for getting a real estate license while she asked me if coding was something people still hired for. I should have said no. Kira told me to say no. But curiosity is dangerous when mixed with old wounds. I wanted to know which version of my mother would open the door. The one who ignored me, or the one who had just discovered I came with a $sign. So I drove to Scottsdale on Christmas Eve with no jewelry, no designer bag, no announcement prepared. The house looked the same. Beige walls, desert landscaping, bright wreath. Preston's framed real estate headshot still on the console table like a campaign poster. Valerie hugged me too tightly and said, "You look successful. Not beautiful. Not healthy. Successful." Douglas hugged me quietly. Preston gave me a half smile and said, "Heard you have been busy." His fiancée, Erin Vance, smiled politely like she was trying to understand what kind of family she was marrying into. Dinner began with turkey, sweet potatoes, green bean casserole, and football playing low in the living room. Valerie asked Preston about a property lead, praised his hustle, and told Erin he had always been destined for big things. Then he bragged about a commission check he expected soon. Not received, just expected. Valerie clapped like he had closed the deal of the century. I kept eating. I had not planned to say anything. Then she turned to me with that old smile, dipped in pity and control, and said, "Celeste, are you still doing those little computer jobs for repairmen? Maybe Preston could use someone like you once his business expands." The table went quiet enough for me to hear the ice shift in my glass. 10 years of missed calls, forgotten birthdays, unpaid work, and tiny dismissals gathered behind my teeth. But when I spoke, my voice was calm. "Not exactly," I said. "I turned down a $34 million offer for my company last Tuesday." Preston's hand stopped halfway to his wine glass. Erin whispered, "Oh my God." Douglas lowered his fork and stared at the table. Valerie blinked once, then twice. Then her palm hit the table so hard the silverware jumped. "Wait, what?" she shouted. I looked at her face, hungry now, awake now, finally pointed at me. And the saddest part was that I did not feel victorious. I felt confirmed. She could hear me just fine. She had simply never considered my life loud enough. The first thing Valerie did after hearing the number was not apologize. That told me everything. She did not say, "I am sorry I never asked." She did not say, "Tell me about the company you built while I was looking away." Instead, she leaned forward, eyes sharp, and said, $34 million? As if the money were a relative who had walked into the room and deserved a chair more than I ever had. Preston recovered before she did. He laughed shortly, the kind men use when their pride is bleeding. "Come on, Celeste," he said. "You mean like investors valued it at that or something, right?" I looked at him and said, "No. A signed acquisition offer. Full buyout." I declined it. Erin stared at him, then at me, doing family math. adding up every story she had been told and realizing the numbers did not match. Douglas finally looked up. "You own the company?" he asked quietly. I said, "I founded it. I built it from college. We have clients across multiple states. We help restoration companies process insurance claims faster after property damage." He closed his eyes, and I knew he was remembering every time I had tried to speak and he had chosen peace over attention. Valerie began smiling, but it was not warm. It was fast and nervous, the smile people use when trying to rewrite history. "Well," she said, "I always knew you were smart." I laughed once, softly. "No, Mom," I said. "You knew I was useful. There is a difference." Her face hardened. "That is a cruel thing to say on Christmas." I said, "Cruel is calling your daughter only when your son needs free work. Cruel is forgetting her birthday and remembering her password skills. Cruel is asking about his leads while she is trying to tell you she built a company." Preston pushed back his chair. "Okay, this is getting dramatic." I turned to him. "You are right. Let us keep it practical. I will not hire you. I will not sponsor your events. I will not pay your debts. And my company is not a family emergency fund." His face flushed. I had not mentioned debts by accident. Valerie had slipped in a voicemail 3 weeks earlier, saying he was under pressure and family should help family. She went pale when she realized I understood. That dinner ended with no shouting from me. That mattered. Valerie wanted a scene because a scene would let her call me unstable. I gave her facts instead. Facts are harder to dismiss. I told them the company was real, the offer was real, and the reason they did not know was simple. Nobody had asked a question and waited for the answer. Then I stood, thanked Douglas for dinner because he had cooked the turkey, and left before dessert. The next morning, Valerie called 6 times before 9. I answered on the 7th because I wanted to hear which mask she had chosen. She chose the wounded mother. "I do not understand why you embarrassed me in my own home," she said. I said, "I told the truth in your own home." She cried a little, but even her crying had an agenda. She said she had done her best. She said, "Mothers make mistakes." Then, after 12 minutes of circling the word sorry without landing on it, she said, "Preston is in a hard place, Celeste. A person with your resources could change his life." There it was. Not remorse. Access. I told her no. She went silent, then said, "After everything this family gave you?" I almost smiled. "What did you give me?" I asked. "Not food, not shelter, not the legal minimum. What did you give me that you did not give him 10 times louder?" She had no answer. Over the next week, she tried every door. She texted articles about forgiveness. She sent baby photos, as if proof she once held me could erase 10 years of not seeing me. She told relatives I had become arrogant. She told Douglas I was punishing her for being proud of Preston. She told Preston money had changed me, but money had not changed me. Money had removed their last excuse for dismissing me. The real revenge came at a family brunch 2 weeks later, though I did not plan it. My aunt, Ruth Marlowe, asked Valerie in front of everyone if it was true that I had built a tech company from scratch. Valerie opened her mouth with her performance voice and said, "We always encouraged Celeste to follow her interests." Before I could speak, Douglas set down his coffee. "No, we did not," he said. The table froze. He looked at me, then at them. "She did it herself. We did not pay attention the way we should have. We helped Preston. We assumed Celeste was fine. That was not encouragement. That was neglect wearing a polite shirt." Valerie looked like he had slapped her. Preston looked furious, but not at me, at her. For the first time, someone had named the bargain he had benefited from, and suddenly it did not look like love. It looked like damage. He stood up and said, You made me believe I was special even when I was failing. You kept saving me, and now I do not know how to stand without asking someone to catch me. Valerie started crying for real then, not because she had hurt me, I think, but because the story she told about herself was collapsing in public. She had been the devoted mother, the builder of a successful son, the woman who knew which child deserved investment. Now everyone saw what her investment had produced: a dependent son, a distant daughter, and a husband who could no longer protect her from the truth. I did not enjoy watching her break. The satisfying part was not her pain, it was that I no longer had to carry her lie. Later, she followed me to the driveway and grabbed my wrist. "Please, Celeste, do not shut me out." I looked at her hand until she let go. I said, "I am not shutting you out. I am locking the door you only knock on when you want something. If you want a relationship with me, it will not include my money, my company, my connections, or Preston's rescue plan. It will include accountability, patience, and a long silence where you listen." She cried harder. I got in my car anyway. For the first time, leaving that house did not feel like being unwanted. It felt like choosing myself before they could choose my usefulness again. 3 months after Christmas, Claimbridge AI signed the largest partnership in our company's history. Not with the Dallas group that wanted to swallow us, but with a national network of independent restoration contractors who wanted to keep their local offices strong while using better technology. We opened a second office in Denver, expanded support, and launched a program for small contractors handling disaster recovery in underserved communities. I also started a scholarship fund at Arizona State for young women studying information systems, construction technology, and applied AI. I named it the Visible Futures Fund. The name made Kira cry. I did not create it to look generous. I created it because I knew how many brilliant young people were sitting in bedrooms, libraries, break rooms, and late-night jobs, building skills while someone at home called their dreams unrealistic. I wanted them to have more than motivation. Motivation is beautiful, but tuition is real. Laptops are real. Mentors are real. A safe place to ask questions is real. Education changed my life not because it made me better than my family, but because it gave me tools they could not take away. Valuable knowledge is not just information. It is power you use to build choices where other people only gave you limits. Valerie still calls sometimes. At first, every conversation drifted toward money, Preston, or whether I was seeing anyone important. I ended those calls quickly. Then, slowly, she changed. Not completely. People do not become different overnight because they are ashamed, but she began asking one question and staying quiet long enough to hear the answer. "What did your team build this month? How many people work for you now? What does an insurance adjuster actually do?" The first time she apologized without adding an excuse, I almost hung up because I did not know where to put the feeling. She said, "I was proud of the child who made me feel important, and I ignored the child who did not ask me for anything. That was not your fault. It was mine." I did not forgive her in that moment. Forgiveness is not a button someone else gets to press because they finally found the right sentence. But I heard her. That was more than I could have done a year earlier. Douglas and I talk more now. He does not rewrite the past. That helps. Sometimes he sends pictures of the desert sunrise from his walks, and sometimes I send photos from the office. We are building something small and honest, which is better than something big and fake. Preston had the hardest road after Christmas. Without Valerie smoothing every consequence, his debts became real, his missed deadlines became real, and Aaron asked questions he could not charm his way around. For a while, he blamed me. Then he stopped asking for money and started working for a property management company where nobody cared that his mother thought he was special. Last month, he texted one sentence: "I think she hurt both of us in different ways." I stared at it before replying. I think you are right. That does not make us close. It makes us honest. And honest is a beginning. People ask if turning down $34 million was the best revenge. It was not. The best revenge was not needing the money badly enough to betray the people who helped me build the company. The best revenge was watching Valerie realize that the daughter she treated like background noise had become the one person in the family nobody could control. The best revenge was not yelling, begging, or proving myself at that table. It was setting a boundary and keeping it after the tears started. If you have ever been the invisible one, understand this. Being overlooked can make you hungry, but hunger needs direction. Do not let it turn you cruel. Let it make you disciplined. Let it push you toward education, toward valuable knowledge, toward skills that create freedom. Learn the field you care about. Ask questions. Find mentors. Save money when you can. Build slowly if you have to. The people who ignored you may come back when your success becomes visible, but you do not owe them the version of you they suddenly find useful. You can love people from a distance. You can accept an apology without handing over access. You can be kind without becoming available for exploitation. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom. My mother ignored me for 10 years, then remembered I existed when she found out I was rich. But by the time she saw me, I had already learned to see myself. That was the part she could not take credit for. That was the part no offer could buy. So if you are sitting somewhere tonight feeling like the forgotten child, the overlooked sibling, the quiet one nobody expects much from, hear me clearly. Their attention is not the finish line. Their approval is not the prize. Build a life that teaches you your own worth before anyone else has the chance to price it. And if the people who once ignored you finally turn their heads, let them look. You do not have to hand them the keys just because they arrived late.